Okay, so you know why you're here. Let's go ahead and jump in. Skip ahead if you just need the shader, but if you want to follow along, let's get a quick particle setup going. So for starters, we're going to go to Simulate, grab Emitters, and Basic Emitter. And we hit play, you can see it is in fact emitting particles. So that gave us a basic emitter and a particle group. The emitter is what's emitting particles, but the particle group is where the actual particle geometry lives. That'll be important later. For now, let's focus on our emitter. I would want this to go in all directions. So let's switch it from a rectangle to a sphere. Let's make it a little smaller and hit play. See what we get. Yeah, there we go. That's more what I was looking for. So I'm going to up the rate to, let's say 1500 for now. Great. So let's add a little more visual interest to this. So we're going to go to Simulate, and we're looking for forces. Let's just drop in a turbulence. So now if we hit play, we see what that did. It's doing a little bit of something, but not quite. We're going to give it some more strength. Let's say 50. Good rule of thumb when messing with simulations, it helps to just kind of blow up values just to see what they do. So let's see what that did. Scale is going to affect the size of the noise features. So if you turn this up, the noise, yeah, you get more defined features in the noise. And then this frequency is how fast that noise animates. And for now, I actually am going to turn this completely off. I want the particles to have a little more of a consistent motion. I'm just going to up the scale to 150, maybe give the strength like 15. There we go. All right, so the effect itself is going to look better the more particles you have. So let's go ahead and just really push this to like, let's say 20,000. Hit play. There we go. Let's talk about rendering. I'm going to go ahead and go up to here. We're going to add a new material. And we're going to look at a easily overlooked material. We're not going to do standard. We're going to do materials incandescent. And before we apply this material, remember when I mentioned the particle group is where the particles actually live? So these need a Redshift object tag. So if I hit Shift-C and just type RS object and hit enter, this tag is really useful for getting software-specific things into Redshift, and that usually applies to like particles or tessellating geometry, things of that nature. In this particular case, you can see it already has the particles tab open for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our mode from disabled to point instances. This is going to put a point on every particle. So let's drop our incandescent material onto our particle group. And I'm going to open up this material, and right away, let's give it a color, because white is really not going to do much. You really want something with more in-between values. So I'm going to go with like a nice blue. I like blue. It also helps to make sure that your RGB values are never maxed out. So even if you just do a tiny bit, that'll also have a bit of an effect. So we got a nice blue. We got our intensity. So let's go ahead and see how that's looking. So this is why this material is really important. So I've got the intensity. These are glowing particles, but the real trick is when I switch this to additive blend. As particles overlap each other, I'll turn it off again. See how like flat and dull those look? And I turn it back on, and suddenly they start to have like this overlapping effect. And this is what I mean by like more particles will look better. So I'm gonna actually close this out. Reset, and let's just like really crank this. Let's say like, what did I say, 20,000? So let's set it at like 100,000. So this is where this effect is going to really start to shine, is when you have a lot of particles happening at once. So let that play out a bit. I'm going to stop. It's a fun shape. Let's see how that looks. Hit render. There we go. So now I open my incandescent material. Let's turn additive blend off. There. See the difference? Flat, boring. Additive blend. Interesting. Magic. So from here, you can start messing with things like, you know, the intensity. You can maybe crank that to like 5. Once you start going past a certain point, you lose some of that additive look. You can bring some of that back in post, but that is something to look out for. I like leaving the intensity at around 1. In fact, the additive glow works better when you start going below 1, because it clips after a certain point, right? When you have, you know, 100 particles that are overlapping and each particle is a value of 1, it will eventually just clip it at white. So if you say 0.2, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, let's go to 0.1. And as we all love in Redshift, you can always turn on bloom. Turn down the threshold, give it a nice glow. Also for particles, streak is really nice. So I'm gonna turn that on. Turn the threshold down. Streak just is really good at making the really bright particles just pop. Turn the intensity up a bit. It also gives you little streaks, which can be fun. This is a pretty quick one, so let's make it a little better while we've got the time, right? So I'm gonna close this out. Let's say you wanted, you know, 2 different colors of particles. There's definitely better ways to do this, but this isn't a particle tutorial, so we're just gonna keep it real simple. What you wanna do is select your emitter and your group, and control click and drag and let go, and that makes a copy. As I made this copy, this group is talking to this emitter. So I'm going to move this emitter somewhere, say over here, hit play. Love it. So now let's control click, duplicate this material, and let's change the color, I don't know, blue and orange. It's a solid go-to. And we're just going to grab this and drop it right on top of that tag. We'll replace it. Redshift, render view. There we go. Pretty neat, huh? Of course, now we're dealing with a lot more particles, and it's going to take a lot longer to update, but it's just part of it. Anyway, I know this is a quick one, but I've been trying to figure this out for a very long time, and I feel like the answer was just staring me in the face. This material, incandescent, has been in Redshift forever, and I knew about it, but I did not know about this additive blend mode, which makes a huge difference if you're trying to make some magic effects. Anyway, hope that saves you some time.